So I'll be the first to say I just recently got into D&D, and the most of the D&D stuff that I've personally played hasn't been your traditional D&D. So when Baldur's Gate was kind of released and people started playing it, I was on it as soon as me and my friends realized it was actually a fire game. And there's a creature in that game, the main deal of the whole game, and it's all based around what we know as Mindflayers or Illithids. For those who don't know and don't know Baldur's Gate, I'll keep spoilers to a minimum, but Mindflayer is other known as a mind ruler. It is basically referred to as a gaith or a sadistic aberration, and it's feared by basically all sentient creatures. It is a terrifying being that is more or less scattered across the multiverse, and it's powerful due to its crazy psionic abilities, or, well, mind abilities. Now, I was thinking, what would have happened if the demons were actually replaced by mind flayers? And for those who already know about D&D and who already know about Baldur's Gate, or who already know about what a mind flayer truly is, I mean, let's just say, I'll keep it between us, but we know exactly what would have occurred. But I'll talk about what would have occurred if these mind flayers actually showed up in Demon Slayer. So, for starters, instead of demons, it would actually be mind flayers, and you wouldn't have this long, basically known era of demons. It just wouldn't work that way. Maybe you would have a mind flare attack at one point, and maybe Yorichi and his brother, who we know as a future demon by the name of Kokoshibo, would actually be the stronger of the defenders of this realm, and would be the stronger of the defenders of the area that they currently are at. Now, with that said, they would be able to fend off these mind flares, but just like there are some amazing and very talented swordsmen out there, they won't be able to defend it for long, because mind flayers would slowly but surely be able to gain intelligence and also better technology that many humans nowadays just are not able to utilize, especially in the world of Demon Slayer. And I guess it would be more like a Lithid Slayer at this point. But an era of Yorichi and Kokoshibo would more or less end, or the era of Yorichi would more or less end, and it would kind of be all bad from here on out. Unfortunately, Yorichi, being the talent that he is, yes, does pass on many great feats, but at the same time, Yorichi's era was the only era that could truly survive in a region or an era or time period that the Illithids or Mind Flayers weren't drastically stronger. At this point, now relying in Tondro's case, it would be far different. Illithids or Mind Flayers would understand what they need to do to actually invade this world, and it would be a scary feat. For starters, you would most likely still have a group of people that are kind of this group that would allow for more or less defense against the Mind Flayers, but you gotta realize that the Mind Flayers have insane psychic abilities that would really put a damper on a ton of the people that would normally be kind of this perfect defense for the demons, at least in the normal of Demon Slayer canon. But this time around, they would kidnap a ton of people, including quite a bit of what we know now as Illithid Slayers, but we know obviously they are Demon Slayers. These Illithid Slayers, though, would be captured, and Mind Flare parasites would be put into their brains. Actually, Todro's family would be part of this as well. But here's the thing, not everybody would live through this process. This process would be kind of brand new to this kind of world, and this process wouldn't go well for every single person. I mean, either they will get changed immediately, or they will somehow make it out with the Illithid parasite in their brain and believe that they are connected to what we know as the Absolute. And the Absolute would be more or less what we know as a quote-unquote nether brain, which the nether brain controls all Illithids. And this is where the story truly takes a drastic turn. We're talking about Tanjiro. It starts in a giant ship, and Tanjiro is more or less injected with an illithid parasite. But luckily enough, some crazy otherworldly powers actually occur, so the ship of the Mindflayers begin to get taken down. Now, this is a massive and fantastic coincidence from basically something happening across the world. Luckily enough, there's other races out there that can help, or at least other people out there in the world of Demon Slayer that can help, and that is me being nice about it, and that is me being very, very nice about it, because this would allow Tanjiro to more or less escaping from the ship looking for his family, but unfortunately his family would be nowhere in sight. Now, he could find a couple people here. Maybe he finds some Hashira. Maybe he finds some other Demon Slayers. In my canon of this brand new Demon Slayer, or this brand new Illithid Slayer, I would think of it more as he finds Zenitsu and Inosuke. Maybe even his little sister Nezuko, who has an Illithid in her brain as well. Now, with them escaping, it would be a pretty difficult task. I mean, they are in a crashing plane, and they are just humans. They don't have any powers at this point anyways. They literally have no form of training, so there's a good chance they will straight up die. But, you know, for fun's sake, we'll say that the plane, or the giant ship would eventually crash, but when they would fly out of the ship, crashing to their inevitable doom, they would actually be saved by what we know actually in Baldur's Gate as their guardian. And, well, we won't talk too much about the Guardian, but let's just say the Guardian is a otherworldly being that has saved them, seemingly with connection to the Mindflayer parasites that actually allows them to more or less survive. Now, the journey from here on out would involve mostly at least trying to survive the onslaught of some of these, well, illithid type of creatures. Now, most of these creatures that they're dealing with have the parasite in their head, but it actually wouldn't more or less be an illithid to an extent. They won't be a straight up mind flayer. It would be just, you know, different people that have the parasites. Some of the worst people you can possibly think of may even have illithid parasites of their own. I mean, I want you to think about it. Yes, they're not demons, but there are some really effed up people in Demon Slayer, including the demons, that would be a pretty interesting take. Imagine if someone like Doma had an illithid parasite and was actually utilizing this power for his own good, and actually was able to colonize the entirety of his whole area. Everybody that believed he was some god into more or less believing that they should follow the absolute, and basically rely on a transformation into an eventual mind flayer. That would make for a ton of mind flayers that they would have to defeat. And I think most of you understand where I'm going with this. The world of Demon Slayer is absolutely screwed. It is not a fun day in paradise here, for sure. And mind flayers make it so it's so much more difficult. Now, you might be wondering, why would you say that? Why is mind flayers make it so much more difficult? Well, I want to start with one thing. Now, mind flayers may not be able to turn people the way that, well, demons can through basically a blood transfusion, but at the same time, they do have a way of mass producing this. I mean, they have the ability to kidnap more or less as many people as they want, and using a parasite, injecting it through the eye cavity, they're easily able to basically transform these people. Yes, the process is pretty difficult, but once the parasite is within the one's brain, it absolutely changes the whole thing and unfolds everything. The only reason why Tanjiro, Inosuke, maybe Nezuko and Zenitsu would even be alive is because of a otherworldly being actually helping them with their parasite. Other than that, everyone else is an absolute freak, thinking that that's some sort of absolute, that they need to follow this, and the powers on top of that of the Mind Flayers is a scary thing. At the end of the day, they are called mind rulers for a reason. The psionic abilities are absolutely insane and a scary thing for the Demon Slayers, or the Illithid Slayers as I've been calling them. Yes, don't get me wrong, the demons have some crazy abilities, and maybe Mindflayers are a little bit easier to actually kill, but that's not the only thing that makes them so good. For obvious reasons, psionic abilities are extremely powerful, especially against humanoid creatures, or just humans in general, but if the numbers game and psionic abilities is not enough for you to believe Mindflayers are even bigger of a threat than the demons, well then let's talk about another thing, technology. Like I said before, the technology that they hold is insane, and way more than anybody in this era would even have. And yes, I know, in D&D you do fight with swords, daggers, spears, bows, and I understand that. And you also fight with magical abilities that can clear out entire areas with a giant fireball. And unfortunately, the Demon Slayers, or former Demon Slayers, don't have those type of abilities. Unfortunately, Tondro can't throw his sword, or Inosuke can't throw his sword and more or less get a triple crit because it counts as extra falling damage. Unfortunately, that's just not how it's going to work. And at the end of the day, even with the Guardian there, more or less a kind of otherworldly being that is helping them out, it would be a very difficult track. A very difficult track. I mean, there is no real end in sight, especially if you have some of the scariest and strongest people in Demon Slayer actually withholding some of the strongest items ever, which would be more or less the Nether Stones, which if whoever hasn't seen or haven't played Baldur's Gate, I truly apologize. I think I've already done warnings as well, but I won't go too far into what the Nether Stones are, but let's just say it has the power to control something that is very, very, very absolute, and, well, let's just say the people that will be holding them wouldn't be the best people in general. And like I said before, Doma himself is a candidate for absolute destruction. I mean, think about it. There's a reason why Doma at one point in Demon Slayer was supposed to be the end-all be-all, the final boss, and eventually was adapted to be an Upper Moon. But Doma himself is the definition of sadistic, the definition of a scary demon, a demon that would terrify you to ever be across. Doma is someone that is literally would breed and also help an entire community just so he can devour the most beautiful women. Yeah, Doma is a freak, man, and a terrifying one. And if you make him believe that he is even more of a god and he should follow what is known as the absolute, and that he should more or less inject all of these people with Mind Flayer parasites, I mean, the production of Illithids would be insane. Insane. And the followers would be more and more and more. Because at the end of the day, I mean, yes, these people aren't super skilled, but if you find anybody that is skilled and transform them into an Illithid, an actual Mind Flayer, it doesn't matter. Their psionic abilities, their ability to fly, their psychic abilities, their ability to more or less dominate via mind powers is something that is practically unstoppable for the Illithid quote-unquote slayers. People that are like Giyu Tomioka and the other Hashira like Shinobu and stuff like that, unfortunately just wouldn't stand that much of a chance in my opinion. I mean, the only way that they truly would is through breathing styles that are actually elemental. Now, this is another thing I wanted to branch off into. Yes, the simple answer, in my opinion, is that Mind Flayers would dominate over it just because of the technology, the numbers that they can create, and the amount of people they can truly sway over to their side via mind and psionic abilities, but also their psychic abilities in general. But I want to talk about this because this is a big thing. For those who don't like the idea of, oh, it was morbid, oh, it's sad because they just die, like that's such a simple idea. And I agree. It is a simple idea. I think it's realistic, but I think sometimes we gotta break down realism just a little bit and flutter a little bit or flirt with the idea of fantasy just a little bit more. So let's do that. And I would say that the Illithid parasites given to all of the Hashira, maybe all of the Demon Slayers, would actually allow them to utilize abilities that would be actual elemental swordsmanship. Yeah, so sun breathing would actually exist. Sun breathing, water breathing, love breathing, whatever you can think of, it would exist. But it would all be actually elemental, and their whole goal would be to kill Illithids. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I just don't think that they'll be able to defeat the Illithids at this scale. There's a couple reasons for that. Even if you give them elemental abilities, we know that there's a lot of Demon Slayers, or in this case, Illithid Slayers, that are far from impressive. Very far from impressive. So it wouldn't be too outlandish to think that those people would definitely not benefit them very much, and being that they are pretty weak-minded, might be easy to dominate in the fashion of Illithids, or Mindflayers would be able to dominate their minds very easily. Now, beyond just that, I mean, the numbers game is a very tough pill to swallow, because at the end of the day, we see a lot of the times when Demon Slayers go up against demons, it's not in a group. It's not a ton of demons or anything like that. It's rarely in that case, if not ever. But this time around, it would be that case. And all of these Mindflayers are relatively strong and very similar to each other, especially when they're fully transformed. And let's not even put into thought someone like Doma, some of these crazier, sadistic, and shoot, maybe we even see an Illithid Kokoshibo, maybe someone that believed that his brother wouldn't be strong enough and that he had to transform and lean into it and become what his brother hated so much. I mean, we'd be dealing with maybe an elemental breathing Illithid? That's a scary thought. I mean, at the end of the day, it would be super tough for these Demon Slayers or Illithid Slayers to truly keep up, and truly keep up with the abilities that they portray, or the Mindflayers truly portray. And I think it would end up being that the Mindflayers take over everything in the world of Demon Slayer. And it sucks to say that, because in the world of D&D, it's really not that simple for them. It never is. But also in the world of D&D, we have various different races that were born and bred to fight. Shoot, we have Githyanki, who were born to fight from the day they were literally conceived out of an egg. They were trained at the harshest conditions you could possibly think of to become elite combatants and warriors. And then you have literal dragon offsprings, dragonborns, that were given the ability to breathe more or less fire, ice, or maybe a different element out of their mouth and still hold a humanoid form. You have sorcerers or wizards that literally have dipped their toes within gods. So unfortunately, I hate to say this, but I think the Demon Slayers, or like I said, Illithid Slayers, are a little bit behind the 8 ball, and it would take a lot for them to truly defeat the Mindflayers. And the Mindflayers, just organization, their mental abilities to more or less take control over so many would be easier, and would allow them to actually make greater and more fruitful progress than the demons ever could. Plus, there is no sunlight that's going to stop them. Day in, through daylight, through sundown, the Illithids can still stand and fight, kill, devour, and take over every last human. And I would love what you guys have to say about the topic. Maybe for those who have seen or have played D&D or played Baldurs Gate, or maybe watched Baldurs Gate on YouTube or something, or anything, what you think would have occurred if the demons were replaced by Mindflayers. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Maybe in the future, I'll do like a long video kind of building a whole story around this idea. I'm not sure yet. Maybe that would be more like a personal project. not like similar to the normal style that I do on this channel. But still, if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff, and hope y'all enjoyed, and hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.